Everyone, thank you for coming. I want to acknowledge a few people, some of the other distinguished guests that are here today. Mr. David Jacobs, City Council for Seaside. Also, back there is Scott Davis, who's running for to be your next sheriff. Ms. Kohler, our former Democratic chair for Monterey Congress. Anybody else? I know we have John Wizard. John. Oh, John Wizard, I'm sorry. And we're ready for City Council, right?
Seaside, yes.
Seaside. Okay. Anybody else? Was that it? Okay, great. Well, he doesn't really need an introduction, but I'll do it anyway. So this, John was a former IRS auditor.
Tax law specialist.
Tax law specialist. And then decided to join Ray Davis in his campaign. And
state office attorney.
Right. And then he decided to run for state board of equalization. He served there. He was your state controller. Now he's your state treasurer. And now he wants to be your next council. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon. It's an incredible privilege and honor to be with all of you. I appreciate your generosity and kindness. It's great to see you again. The Scott keeps coming out, and I wanted to recognize Carol, who used to be one of our star attorneys at the Board of Equalization. Oftentimes in our midst, when you sit or stand shoulder to shoulder, you don't know the extraordinary work that people do. One of the things we have to build in our communities are more meaningful connections to get a sense of the depth of what we're engaged in, right? To see how closely and how common our bonds and hopes and aspirations are. So Carol, thank you. My first, as introduced, my first elected office was the Board of Equalization, and I got a lot of credit. Oftentimes the elected officials get credit that they deserve, and oftentimes they get the criticisms that they deserve and don't deserve, but the people that make those miracles happen oftentimes are unstated and unrecognized, so I wanted to make sure that Carol was recognized here today. Just a sense of the moment, so the highlights of yesterday are just so profoundly disturbing, and unfortunately they've become so repeated time and again, right? The President's use of the word S-hole, right, in reference to people who come from different places, right? The possibility of the President, paying money, right, to hide, his mistress, right? We need to have a sense of integrity, and we need to have a sense of community and a sense of leadership, and it begins and emanates when you think about sexual harassment or racial discrimination, right? We're on the threshold of celebrating Martin Luther King again tomorrow, as we should. He was one of my childhood heroes as I was growing up. And that confluence. And then I was watching on YouTube Allison on CNN, right? And she was starting to tear up when she was listening to Bill Kristol, the conservative commentator, and his tweet about a young man who went 4 times into a fire to rescue folks, and then he lost his life in that fire, right? And it was an immigrant from Ghana, right? And you bring those confluence of that man's courage, Mr. Manasa, and I apologize for not getting his name correctly, what he's done relative to what the President's done, right? He did it with integrity, and yet the President makes criticisms of good people who have a greater sense of our humanity, right? And that's what we will celebrate tomorrow with Martin Luther King, right? And the fact that he ran into the fire, I don't know how many of you are West Wing followers, right? It's so mirrored the streets of heaven. Anybody see that? Remember that from Streets of Heaven, right? There were some pipe bombs that blew up in Kennesaw State, right? And the President was talking about how 2 or 3 swimmers went into the fire to save folks, right? And 44 lives were lost. And he talked about this, the streets are filled with angels. How today America requires more American heroes, than ever. But he said, you know, the challenge is great. You know, we can meet the capacity. And that's what this is about, right? This is about what our work is about. So that's that sense that I approach you. Now, this is going to be a little bit strange. I was, at one point in my life, I was hoping to buy a house here in Seaside. Right, I've been a public servant, and you know, this coast has always been a dream for me. I knew I was never going to afford Carmel. Right, and so some of the years back, right, as the economy, and this is way back, right, I used to sit with Larry Gottlieb, who was counsel at Hoffman and Broad, and they were going to build housing here, which I think they did.
They did. Yeah.
They did, right? And originally that housing was for, you know, 3 or 4 person housing for less than $300,000 at the outset, right? And it got delayed in building it. And so I would sit with Larry on an annual basis. And finally, when they were ready to sell that house, it was $600,000 because the real estate market had gone up, right? And I'm thinking, oh, $600,000 is more than the value of my house in LA, right? I can't afford it. But for a few years else, I would have been your neighbor here in Seaside. I'm running for governor because of things that I just said, right? I have a fundamental belief in the goodness of the people, and I want to take California to a much better place. You've given me this incredible privilege and honor of serving in multiple offices. This area didn't elect me to the Board of Equalization. I represented much of Los Angeles, but you helped elect me as your controller and your state treasurer. So it's been an incredible treasure to serve in all 3 elected financial offices. It's a very different experience than what others have engaged in, right? Because all of us have great aspirations. My parents are immigrants who came to this country based on the dream of what an education provides. They sacrificed a lot. They had to start all over. My dad had 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and about $100 in his pocket when he left Taiwan in the 1950s to get higher education. My mom came separately, right? She went to a junior college, had to take some tough manual work, but there's value and dignity in good hard work, right? It was part of my upbringing. But I had a really bad job with it. One of my early jobs was selling the penny saver. Right? Anybody ever tried to sell a penny saver? I remember soliciting door to door, and one time one man goes, "You know, we get this for free in the mail." Right? You know. So basically, you were getting charity sales. I was a busboy, I was a dishwasher, I was a janitor, right? So I loved doing all those jobs, right? For some, that is their principal means of living. For those, it gives you an entree to access to fund higher education. It was the latter for me, right? But it's important that we give work to all. We give that possibility of opportunity. And so I think about on it, and I govern very, very differently because I've had to help others, including other elected officials, make their dreams come true. Right? People talk about education, but oftentimes they don't talk about how do you fund education. Right? So I have to do the work where the legislator or the governor starts saying. I remember one time we were in a fiscal crisis. My old boss, Greg Davis, said, "Hey John, can you find me $75 million?" Right? It's like we don't have $75 million sitting on the side. Right? But you do things like that. Right? As your state controller, you know, I'm really proud that I was able to keep California from a financial collapse. Right? People had written you off. They had written me off. They had written us off, right? People like to make fun of California. And I take that as a personal offense, right? Sometimes a little too tough on Texas. In my inaugural speech, I made fun of Texas, right? But if the governor of Texas is going to make fun of California, the then controller and treasurer of California is going to make fun of Texas or Las Vegas or everybody else who's going to stick it to us, right? Because I believe in our values. I believe in you. And I believe that we are something special. And I want to get us there. And today, as your state treasurer, right, I'm working on the things that I believe are important for all of us. Clean, safe neighborhoods, a thriving economy, a beautiful coastline, high, good paying jobs, a house for every Californian, and affordable and accessible health care for all. So that's what I try to do. That's what I try to do. Now, we have to do it in very difficult times. We know that the president doesn't share in a lot of what we believe in. And so my philosophy on that is how I govern, whether we have somebody back in DC that supports us or those who are opposed to us. I believe California leads. We lead. We lead by words. We lead by action. And this is my fundamental thought with President Trump. We will assist where we can, and we will fight back and push back as hard when we need to, when he's acting inconsistently with our values. Right? As when I took my oath of office 6 times at the Board of Equalization, the Controller, 5 times, Treasurer, right? And I say, I, John Chiang, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies. And oftentimes people forget these next words: foreign and domestic. Right? So when the president says you don't have value, when you come from an S-hold, I have an obligation under the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California to do everything to protect and support the dignity, decency, and respect of all Californians. And California, as I said, is the leader. Will fight as an example for all of America. So I will close with that and take questions from you. What's also important, another clip that I like from West Wing is I watch it every once in a while. So during that crisis, right, and some of the White House staff, Josh, right, they're making fun, and right, they have to say that they work in the White House, right, it's sort of a joke, right, but when you work at the White House, what an incredible privilege, right? I think the people today in the White House forgot that you have an incredible privilege to serve, to make each other's lives better, to represent what's best, to be honest, to exercise integrity. And so I think they're in a bar near Notre Dame, and you have a father sitting at the bar, and his daughter had just visited Notre Dame, and he's talking about how beautiful it was, something really special. And he's talking about how, I forgot whether it makes $55,000 or $60,000, but he's talking about how difficult it is, and his wife makes $25,000. His son goes to a private school, right? The school's not that good, right? 37 kids in a classroom, no arts, no music. Right? He says, can't pull my son away from the piano when others, parents have to force them to play, right? And he's just talking about, there's dignity, right? He wants to help get his daughter through college, right? But he says, they're only that far away, but that far away oftentimes is huge, right? And why I bring that story is that it reminds me of my dad. Right? My dad worked hard. He saved money. He wanted the kids, right? My parents told me early on, right? They used to take us to the bank nearly every week early on for a while, right? Deposit $1 a week. You don't get to spend it. You're going to save it for college. Made a little bit more money, $2, $3. He said, we can't cover it all for you. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to take student loans. That was okay. Like when the kids used to complain, it's like, I remember early on, right? He's like, I wanted to get the $6, $8 Converse. Like, so we get the Bob Taylors, and my parents would give me the $2 Kmart specials. So we want the Converse, right? They said, Dad's not going to understand. He came to this country with not much, right? He can't complain. He's not going to accept it. Right? We work, but I want us to work together to accomplish our dreams. So let me open up for any questions you have.
You commented on one of the things you want to see is affordable, accessible health care. I've been told, I don't really know, I've been told that you're in opposition to single-payer plan in California. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, so the answer, that's not correct. I support single payer. My parents come from Taiwan, but this is the difference between me and others. Because I'm the money man. I'm the money man. I want a serious, honest plan that is straightforward to pay for single payer. Right? What I have said is let's figure out how much money we have in the system today and figure out how much we can cover for single payer. Right? And frankly, part of this is we know that, let's be honest, single payer is not going to happen at the earliest for 3 years, because we're not going to have single payer while Donald Trump is in the White House. Right? He takes a tax plan, he sticks it to us. He tried to stick it to us on housing. Right? He's trying to stick us in law enforcement grants. He's sticking it to Republican governments in the state that follow his health care plan. Right? That's how messed up they are in Washington, D.C. They're telling states all across the country, do what we say, and they do what he says, and they don't even give it to them. I think single payer is the most efficient. I think it will help drive down healthcare costs. But we have to figure out how to pay for it. Right? So my plan is, let's take that step to create building single payer, understanding how much money we have available, and not based on a wish list of what we can build. I want to get to that day where we have universal coverage. Right? There are two estimates out there as how much, if we want to have all-in single payer, that estimate done by the UMass Amherst studies cost us $106 billion additional dollars. $106 billion additional dollars. The UCLA study says, right, if I read Dan Walter's article correctly, we need another $200 billion. Right, if we're going to shift it into the government. That's hard. That's hard, right? It's all for single payer, but I also want to be honest. My top priority as governor, my top priority is education. Right, so if we have an additional dollar in, it's going to go to education. It's going to go to early childhood education first. It's going to go to higher education second. Because you can't have kids who fall behind when they're a year old in life. You can't have kids fall behind, further behind, when they're 2 years in life and 3 years in life. Right, so I want to make sure that, in part, that we do single payer and everything else. Right? It's just not single payer, financially correctly, so that we can build an ecosystem correctly. Right? Remember, I was the controller when we got the math, when the legislature and governor got the math law. I was the one who stood up for all of you. Right, when Governor Schwarzenegger signed that budget, my press release said the moment the governor signed that press release, the budget was out of balance. And my own Democrats, who I grew up with, who I love, they attacked me. Right, because it's part of the system. I said, you guys, because I understand how it is. I understand how a family struggles when the math doesn't go right, right? I mentioned my dad working really hard. Sometimes the math went wrong in our family. Not because anything that we did wrong, but my dad had health issues. 2 strokes, 2 bypasses. He saved that money. Under that old health insurance plan, 80-20. That 20% wiped out the family savings, right? That's why I support single payer. Because I don't want other families to be in that circumstances. But right, as that math went wrong for our family, I don't want that math to go wrong for the California family. Right? So that's why I'm a little bit tougher. Right? Because I said, let's do this right. Because like they did in Sacramento in 2008, 2009, they got the math wrong, and who paid? Education paid. Right? We owed $10 billion to education. We kept deferring. 188 school districts were in financial trouble, right? Negative or qualified certification. We we cut services from Medi-Cal. Real people, especially the most vulnerable, were hurt. And I was the Democrat, and thankfully Bill Locker joined it, to stand up to our friends to say that was wrong. And aren't we proud, and don't we feel better today that we're out of debt? Right? Doesn't it feel better that instead of 188 school districts that were in financial trouble, we only have 20 school districts, less than 20 school districts are in financial trouble? Doesn't it feel nice that we're saving a little bit of money because we know we have another recession is coming down the way? Right? As Governor Brown said, if we have a mild recession, we're going to lose 50, it's expected at least 55, or around $55 billion of revenues. How much do we have saved for that $55 billion expected loss? Anybody know how much we have saved today? At the end of this fiscal year, we're hoping to have about $8.5 billion saved. At the end of next fiscal year, we're hoping to have $13.5 billion saved. Right? We've got a ways to climb. We've got a ways to climb, but we're making progress. It's better than owing $30 billion in cash. You remember I had to issue IOUs? I had to issue IOUs, maybe some of you in this room, right? Because we were only collecting, when I had in February of 2009, where I had to hold back your tax revenues, tax refund checks for 23 days, I only had $6 billion to pay $10 billion worth of bills. It never had to happen, right? I said earlier, right? I said earlier, the state's math is wrong. Fix it. And that's where we have to give credit to Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown understood it, right? In 2012, we could have had another financial crisis like we had in 2009. My office sent a communication to Jerry Brown's office. If you don't act now, the state will have another financial crisis. Governor Brown's response, tell us what we need to do. That's leadership. That's leadership, right? Except if I'm the governor, I'll work with the controller. I don't have to ask because I just naturally start looking at the numbers. That's just who I am, right? Because I'm thinking about all of you, right? When people talk about single payer, I already start thinking about how do I get more money? How do I get more money to pay for education? How do I get more money to pay for single payer? How do I get money for public safety? How do I get more money to rehabilitate the incarcerated, right? So we don't have overcrowding. How do we do all of that stuff? So that's my work that's different.
Thank you for being here. Could you share your outlook or perspective on affordable housing and the package of bills that was recently passed, and Costa-Hawkins?
So yes, so we've made the 15 bills that went through yesterday is a great step forward, right? But we have a massive shortage. We're 1.5 million units short, right? In the next decade plus, it is expected that we will be over 3 million units short. The difference between me and the others is that I'm acting, right? If you went back, if you were at my treasurer's speech, you will see that I made housing a priority. Now, as your state treasurer, I've increased, and this is off a small base, so I don't want to take more credit, right? I want to be honest. I don't want to take more credit than I've earned. But I've been able to increase the development of new and rehabilitated housing by 83%, right? And what I did is, as I will do it often, my staff did a statewide tour. We brought nonprofits, we brought for-profit builders and developers and advocates for the poor and rich and urban and rural. We brought unions, we brought environmentalists, and we had conversations about what we could do for housing. And so part of, I will do that as a treasurer. I'm asking all of you to vote for the 2018 bond measure. Do you know how we finance affordable housing? Does anybody know how we finance affordable housing in the state? Okay, so, pardon?
Public activity bonds and low-income housing tax credits.
Yes, very good, right? And so some of you know, you mentioned private activity bonds. I led the effort in the state to challenge President Trump on private activity bonds, right? Now, you know what it is. A lot of people don't know what it is, right? This is where I'm different than others who talk, right? And I'm not criticizing talk, right? Because you need to talk, you need to tweet, you need to do all those things, right? You need a voice, but you need people who understand what the problems are, right? And if you don't have financial expertise, and the House passes a tax plan that eliminates the tax exemption for private activity bonds, because you have the tax specialists who know how to attack opportunities for the middle class and the working poor. People get blindsided, they lose their financing for housing, and they never know it, right? I work in it on a daily basis, that's why I was the one who stood up. But I didn't stand up and just post a Facebook post or just tweet, right? I brought together those in the housing community. I did a press conference down in San Diego. Democrats, Republicans. We challenged the Republican congressional members and what that loss of private activity bonds would do to affordable housing in their districts. Right, Daryl, I said some others responded to me because they were pissed off because I called them out on it. Right, now we lost in the House, but we won in the Senate, right, because we started that effort and we got the housing community up in arms, right, and they worked the Utah senators, and one of the Utah senators was opposed to it, so they didn't include it in the Senate package of tax reform. Right, that's the leadership that we need. But when I get to the governor's office, if I'm so blessed, right, I'm going to have a person who works on housing at the cabinet level, coordinating everything that's taking place. I want to push for a $9 billion bond. And you're thinking, $4 billion, I'm sorry, I didn't explain the basic tenets. When you do affordable housing, there's federal, state, and local. And why we've had such a problem is that the federal government, this isn't just President Trump, because I'm honest, it happened during the Obama administration, largely due to Congress, that they provided less national housing support so that we could build our housing. The state hasn't gone out for a bond, so the state hasn't made the contributions that we need to. So I will push for a $9 billion bond, but also push for more money on the general fund revenues on an annual basis. And then I will bring back redevelopment agencies so that local governments, right, local governments under the old redevelopment agencies used a 20% set aside for their contribution to build affordable housing. So that's just a basic outline. I want to build housing for 4 million Californians. Oh, and Costa-Hawkins, we have to do a reset on Costa-Hawkins. Right, we know that time has passed. Right, so we have all these that are falling out, and so I think it's important that we do an update of Costa-Hawkins. Right, and we're going to have to figure out caps rate. Even though it's already illegal, but we see these practices when you have in the market where people are taking advantage, right? They're increasing rent by 40%, they're increasing rent by 200% where fire ravaged areas, right? It doesn't have to be a natural disaster. It's happening in too many communities throughout the state of California, so we're going to have to redo it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm concerned about the possibility of oil drilling off of our coast. And I know that most Californians aren't into that. What is your plan to fight the federal government on preventing that from happening? Because we didn't get a waiver like Florida did.
Yeah, well, the governor asked, and then, the good thing about President Trump, he also gave us a legal avenue for litigation, right? When he did it with Florida, and if he doesn't recognize it for California, right, our lawyers will look at, the equal treatment under the law, right? Why do you exempt Florida? I've been a leader in this area, so when I was your controller, I think it was my second year, I was so sick of ExxonMobil denying climate change, right? Me and Denise Napier, the treasurer of Connecticut, who's retiring, and I and an environmental group and a bunch of nuns went down to the ExxonMobil shareholder meeting. We were pushing a package of proxy resolutions to challenge ExxonMobil now. We got trashed. We lost, right? I was wearing an olive green suit. Somebody goes, "You must be from California wearing that green stuff here." Right? It wasn't even like an Irish green, right? It's just like the olive green. But I said, proud to be from California, right? Because we want to take it to them. And it's interesting, right? You started it. What I was really proud of, they didn't succeed either. The next year, a couple of the Rockefellers joined on, right? And I didn't go to subsequent year, right? They were, but you know, you had Rockefellers talking about, you know, those types of oil practices. And I would encourage you to look at all of our votes, right? Everybody in this race who's running so they wanted to drill off the coast of Santa Barbara. It was a 2-to-1 vote. Lieutenant Governor John Garamendi and I voted no. Governor Schwarzenegger's representative voted yes. The environmental community actually said go ahead and drill, right? Because what they had worked out with the oil companies is they said, you know, you can only drill for a limited period of time. I just said no drilling, right? And I just said I don't trust the oil companies. And the Bush administration was in office. I said, you really think, you really trust the company and you really trust the administration? Right? You're taking the words of the oil companies and you're taking the trust of the administration. And I think I was pretty right? Because you have President Trump. They would have never adhered to that agreement. And then it's an environmental justice issue for me too. They were going to build an LNG facility off the coast of Oxnard. Oxnard is a heavily Latino community. They already have power plants, right? They already have air quality issues. And I voted no on that. I'll give you an area where there's a difference. I also want to be honest, right? We have a vote on oil drilling down in Southern California. Now, the oil company was legally entitled to drill. Right? This would be their continuation extension of a lease. The current lieutenant governor and I voted differently. He voted for that drilling. I voted against the drilling. What I stated publicly is, if oil companies have a right to drill, I don't think we can give them a financial break to drill, right? Because those monies go into the education coffers of the state of California. You put the money from using the lands of the state of California for the oil companies, or you use that money for the drilling to put into the schools of the state of California to educate the children. We made a different choice.
When can we return property taxes to an equal basis so that equivalent property of equivalent value is taxed equally? It's been many years now, and people who've lived in their own house for a long time get a break. 1% a year does not begin to move as fast as market values. And that has led to distortion in property conditions. Property is deteriorating because if you bring it up to code, you'll have to pay a price in taxes. So it's like it's like rent control. You've got the same kind of distortions that go on year after year and worsen year after year, so that your neighbor who may have moved here or not moved at all is paying a tiny fraction of what you are in property taxes. This isn't doing us any good at all.
So are you asking for the elimination of Proposition 13?
I am.
Yeah, so I'm not for that.
Actually, what I'm asking for is equality. And the way other states work it is every few years, they reassess everybody. You know, things get out of whack, they reassess them all. They all come up, of course, the mill rate comes down, and on average we're paying just as much as we were before. But some people pay more and other people pay less. That doesn't have to be the elimination of Prop 13. It needs to be a change in the way my property is related to your property.
So my concern with you is the residential. Right? Yeah, and I understand I still haven't eliminated the disparity.
It has a lot of problems for business.
Yeah, and so that's my issue.
I can lease my business buildings to you and keep the old property tax, but your competitor who builds a new building has got to pay the new tax rate, and you've got an unusual and unfair advantage against your competitor because of that.
And I understand that, right? So I wanted to have a fair treatment under the standards that Proposition 13, I think, failed, right? So, right, that trigger was supposed to be if you had substantial improvement or transfer of ownership of a majority, right? So it's 50% plus one, right? So today we have that evasion, right? You will have, right, that famous Bell case where they will transfer, instead of their interests all at once, right? Because you have some smart tax lawyers and others, you will have multiple transactions so that at one point it will be more than 50% plus one, but it doesn't trigger the reassessment because it didn't occur all at once. I am for that reform. I want to make sure that when you have that transfer, that you do trigger that reassessment. Yes.
Thank you for saying that you want to bring back redevelopment agencies. I live in Marina, and we haven't been able to do anything on affordable housing ever since the redevelopment agencies went away. And so my question is, Monterey County is kind of a low-wage county. Most of our jobs are agriculture, hospitality, or public sector jobs, and we also live in one of the most expensive places. Do you have any thoughts on how, as governor, you can bring more jobs, better jobs, and make the current jobs in rural areas like Monterey County better?
So part of what I want to do is I want to invest or have, I want to capture and support community, the community's culture and style, right? So in regards to economic development, I want to bring like incubators and accelerators throughout the state, right? So here in Monterey County, right, like in Salinas, you have like an ag tech incubator, right? They spoke at a gathering last year with that, right? You have certain aspects in regards to the arts, right? You have a growing, and I've come up here multiple times, right, talking about, I've worked on when the voters passed 64, right, there were two major failings of Proposition 64, two major issues it created. It didn't properly address tax administration, right? So here you have legal business owners who want to comply with the tax laws of California, but the initiative failed to spell out tax administration. So your representative here, Fiona Ma, in her district will accept on certain days at certain offices in her district the payment of taxes for cannabis. George Runner, the conservative Republican in his district, will accept it in his district, certain offices, certain times. And the two representatives from Southern California, Los Angeles, and down to the Mexican-US border will not accept it. Right? So those who are trying to follow the law can't get it, right? And the other issue with cannabis is it failed in regards to proper banking, right? And so because they passed it, but they waited instead of addressing this issue at the front end, right? The effort that we're trying to do together to catch up, right? And I convened an 18-member working group, right? We could have done, if they had thought about this more, right? We could have perhaps captured more opportunities during the Obama administration instead of waiting to have to deal with this in the Trump administration, right? So that made it more difficult, right? But part of what this is that I want to look at all these areas and then bring the government agencies and have these deep conversations about what we can do to assist individuals, families, and businesses. How are we more effective, efficient in regards to the use of resources, more targeting, and just, upgrade practices. Earlier this week, I unveiled a program called CBIG. It's California Business Incentives Gateway. So as your state treasurer, I chair 15 economic development authorities. Only a dozen are real, right? Legislature sometimes passes government agencies and they provide no money. So one of them I really want, or two of them I really want. I could chair a transportation agency or authority, right? I really want to work on transportation. I could also chair a healthy foods authority. And everywhere when I visit colleges, I end up giving them like make a donation of $888, right? Then I'll ask the president of the college, I said, or 250 depending on the thing. I said, do you want your money for tuition assistance for students who are challenged? Do you want it for your food insecurity program? Or do you want it for your housing insecurity program? Because I'm concerned about those who are struggling. Right, so I want to target programs to address that. So my CBIG, what I created is sort of like an Amazon.com. Right, you go on to Amazon.com and you start shopping and they give you choices. So what I try to do with CBIG is, and you can check it if you want to right now, cbig.ca.gov, is you go on, tell us a little bit about your business, where you are, you're in Monterey County or you're Seaside. I don't know if Seaside has economic development programs. Right, Sacramento, Rancho Cucamonga. Tell us what you're interested in, and it should pull up the information as to what's available. So it's in its early iteration. So we had identified there's like 900 entities, federal, SBA, state, local, that would possibly involve in economic development. My staff and interns this past summer started calling a lot of governments. So there's about less than 300 that provide economic incentives. We had 78 sign up. We have 54 that are in the process of adding their information. But eventually, what I hope to do as governor is have a one-stop shop, right? You're located in a business in Seaside, California, top to bottom. This is everything the state of California has to assist your business, right? So help us with business retention and help us with business growth.
Would you repeat that link, please, for CBIG?
cbig.ca.gov. And then while we're checking websites, I no longer administer this program, but I'm very proud that I fixed it. Any of you ever get money back from unclaimed property? Okay, a couple of you. You can quit listening to me now if you want to take a moment, but it's now operated by Betty, and I want to thank Betty for enhancing its functions. But in my first year in office, I got hauled into court, and they said, John, the state's unclaimed property program is broken. I begged the judge for a year to try to let me fix it. They granted it. Thanks to Mike Machado, right? None of us are successful unless other people are helpful. State Senator Mike Machado will get yelled at by his colleagues, right? Because here we're taking money out of the state's general fund, but it's not the state's general fund's money. It's your money, right? If the state owes you money, we got to be giving you your money. We got it fixed, and so the website is claimit.ca.gov, right? It only takes 30 seconds, right? So for those of you, if you want to check just to make sure it works, go ahead. It works. You gotta check it all the time.
I'm your hook, by the way. Your staff tells me that you have one more questions that you can answer. Okay, then you have to be on the way.
I'm meeting with the unions in the back, and then if you want to write your question, I'm happy to, with the phone number, I'm happy to call you while I'm in transit to make some questions.
I apologize. You may have answered this because I came in late, but it's very important to me. Governor Brown has always been a man of vision. And recently, when he met with the legislators and they were going over budget, then Republicans were very quick to talk about tax refunds. And his idea was to put the money into a rainy day fund for the future of our children, because we never know what's going to be in the economy tomorrow. And this seems to me to be the prudent thing to do. And I live on a fixed income. It's difficult every time I go to the gas pump, but I'm willing to do that for the future of my grandchildren and my children. And I want to know what your opinion is on the excess funds in the state of California right now, and as governor, what you would do with them.
Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you did.
I strongly support it. Like as I pointed out to people early on, and actually I asked the question, how much does anybody know how much we have saved today? Like by the end of this fiscal year, about 8.5 to 8.9 billion. At the end of the next fiscal year, 13.5. Right. So I went over the numbers. So okay. I strongly support it.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you so much for taking your time out of this evening. I ask you for your support of my campaign. I ask you for the support of Democrats. We got a lot of work to do. We wanted to be that beacon, right? They used to talk about that city on the hill. We're the state on the hill. Okay, thank you.